I'm glad many of you are able to stay. We now have two experts from the film who are joining Jennifer for our discussion. First is Dr. Judy Chu, lecturer in human biology and an affiliated scholar at the Clayman Institute for Gender Research. Her research training is in human development and psychology as applied within the field of education. Dr. Chu has taught a course on boys' psychosocial development at Stanford for the past 12 years. She's the author of When Boys Become Boys and co-editor of Adolescent Boys, Exploring Diverse Cultures of Boyhood. Her work explores boys' experiences of gender socialization during early childhood and adolescence, highlights boys' relational strengths, and supports boys' efforts to preserve their integrity in close relationships. Also with us here tonight is Dr. Joseph E. Marshall Jr., co-founder and executive director of Alive and Free Omega Boys Club. With headquarters in San Francisco, the organization works on youth development and violence prevention with an emphasis on academic achievement. In addition to being an author, lecturer, radio talk show host, and community activist, he is the founder of the Alive and Free movement, dedicated to eliminating violence worldwide and active in the United States, Canada, South Africa, Haiti, Botswana, and Thailand. In 1994, Dr. Marshall received a MacArthur Genius Grant Award for his work in the field of youth violence, and this year is celebrating his 200th college graduate. Please join me in welcoming Drs. Chu and Marshall. So I was asked to maybe just throw out a broad question to get the conversation started, so I will do that, and I will take the answer down in my seat. And then at any point you feel comfortable, we can start taking questions from the audience, and we have microphones on each side. And when you are given the signal that you could come up, just line yourself up and we will take a few questions. But given that most of our audience here today is comprised of college students, and have gone through the process of having been socialized to be what they were taught from many different sources on how to be a man. I wanted to hear from all of you about some of the main takeaways and what it is that the students leaving here today, what it is that they can leave with and do immediately to start addressing some of the issues that were brought up in the film.
I would just say, there are three simple things that we can do. We have to have a national conversation that expands what it is to be a man, a conversation that embraces whole masculinity, and not be afraid to have this conversation, whether in your dorm, fraternity, classroom, on the sports field. It's critical that we have this conversation. Second of all, we, regardless of our age, need to recognize that we're a role model, whether we like it or not. And we have to mentor healthy, whole masculinity. We can't just be modeling sort of the dominator model of masculinity, the dominance, the power, the control, the aggression. So that's critical. And then thirdly, we have to help all of the young boys in our lives stay true to who they are, not repress their emotions, not deny their feminine traits, and really not disconnect or disassociate. And that's critical because it's up to us to inspire future generations. And if we feed them and continue to feed them really limiting narratives about their value and what it is to be a man, we're not necessarily contributing to leaving the world in a better place. So those are three things that I encourage we all do.
You said that so beautifully. I'm not sure I have too much to add. I think one of the things that I emphasize in my work is that boys have relational capabilities that are essential to their health and happiness, and that are not feminine weaknesses, but human strengths. And so, as Jen said, we really want to help them to value and acknowledge them and develop those things. Also, that boys' socialization kind of moves them away from showing what they know, and so again, helping them to stay connected to that self-knowledge and grounded in their thoughts and their feelings and their interests and everything that makes them who they are and allows them to feel good about themselves is a very healthy way to go, and I will pass it along before.
So I would say we took the mask off. You just saw it. You caught us in a moment. We're going to put it back on. So you better don't deny what you just saw, because it's hard for men to do that. And we did it. And it's really, as far as I'm concerned, a cry for help. And if we don't get the help, we're going to go back and do exactly what we've been doing for all of these years. So I've seen the film a bunch of times. When I see it, I just think it's remarkable that she got us to do that, because that's not something we want to do, but we did, and it's on film, and so we really can't want to run away from it, and neither can you. That's the way I see it.
God bless. Are there any questions, the audience? In the middle?
I sometimes think about, if a boy has trouble showing emotions. In the movie they said, the only way that they're allowed to show emotions is through anger, and then when you try to approach them, they can't really say I'm sad or these emotions that they're not allowed to have. How do you approach somebody and say, this is like a space where you're safe and you can say whatever you want?
Yeah, you want to tackle it?
Well, to me, it all starts with that boys don't cry thing. That's a bunch of BS, okay? So we learn that real early, and it starts right there. And then that's not human. So we're trying to do something that's not human, and it just snowballs from there. I just think if you stop telling boys that in the first place, you got a chance. But when you start telling them to do something that's not normal, it's not natural, it's like plugging up the, it's just not right. And so, since I work with guys all the time, I just, I have to constantly tell them it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to be. My favorite scene, the whole movie's great, but my favorite scene is when he has the boys take the mask off and write on one side, around there. It just reveals the truth. And so you got to get them in a place where they can do that, and then tell them it's okay to do it, because in many ways they just got to unlearn everything that they've learned, and then just be here to argue. Everybody's trying to wear the mask. It's a perfect title, because it is a mask. You put it on in the morning, and you don't take it off until you're in prison, maybe, and then you take it off because you got to face all those things that put you there in the first place. So to me, it starts with that boys don't cry thing, because that's the worst thing, I think.
What's ironic is that we named the film The Mask You Live In before we actually filmed the mask scene, and he didn't know that that was the name of the film. And so it's sort of interesting and ironic that all came together. But I'm sure you figured it out, because a lot of people think the film is The Mask We Live In, because yes, we women also don a mask and are part of this culture and have bought into the dominant culture, but it's the mask you live in, and because you say it fast. Yeah, the mask you live in, the masculine, right? That's one way to remember.
That's awesome.
I love the aha.
It's funny, because if I was talking to my boys, my kids, I would ask different questions. I'd ask my kids, did you know that? Is that true? Which is the question I would ask you, but it's not you're asking us a question. But when I show it to them, I'm going to ask them, is it accurate? Is it true? And then I would ask them, how does it make you feel? How does it make you feel? Because, everybody applauds, but I don't know if they really, get it. And how does it make you feel? So I would or do you even believe what you just saw? Because the worst thing I think you can do is deny what all the men in there said. But it's part of the culture. And since something's part of a culture, it's difficult to change. And that's why, I really admire what Jennifer's done, because she's taken on something that's been ingrained for centuries, literally. That's just how guys do it, and we pay. And the thing is, everybody pays a price for this. One of the things that I've been saying is, we generally we're teaching women to avoid us, instead of teaching us not to do anything to you, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. when the prison population is overly male and all the sexual assault and all that stuff is going on, we're always teaching women triggers, try to stay away from guys like that. But what we should really do is teach us not to do it to you in the first place. So again, the opportunity's here. The door's not going to, the window's not going to open very often. I've never seen a film like this ever. There's been a lot of films about women, not many about it all about men, and just see what the society really is willing to do with it. I mean, to me, when you see this stuff, you can't go and teach the same stuff, because then you're actually contributing. That's the way I would say to my young men, contributing to the very thing you don't want to see.
Did you want to answer that initial question?
In terms of how to get boys to talk about it, or whether they can't, I think just as Dr. Marshall pointed out that, there's a myth that boys don't cry. I think it's a myth that boys are not able to talk about emotions or in touch with their emotions. I think you'll find that if you are genuinely interested and that you create a trusting environment, that boys can tell you exactly what they're thinking and what they're feeling and what they know, but they have to trust you and they have to know that it's safe and that you're not going to, like I said in the movie, you're not going to use it against them. But they are looking to connect to other people. The third point that I kind of skipped over earlier was that boys absolutely seek connections and resist disconnections, both in terms of connections to themselves and connections to others. And they want to be known for who they are, and they want to be valued for all that they are. And so, yes, I think it's absolutely possible to talk to boys, and they will surprise you with what they're able to tell you.
Great. Yes. Oh. Exactly.
So I'm curious about the response to the solutions question about whole masculinity. And I guess since the film defines masculinity at the beginning as a reaction to the construction of femininity, what does that mean that a solution would more wholly embody the reaction to femininity? And so I think that gets to two questions. One is, what really is the history of the construction of femininity? And also, are there ways to conceive of solutions that are alternatives to masculinity? Or even considering things in the masculine and feminine vein?
Sorry, the last part, it sounded, I didn't quite understand the last part of what you were saying.
The last part is can we also conceive of solutions that altogether ditch the concept of masculinity?
Sure. I'll just take a very simplistic response here to what I think you're asking. Essentially, if someone was to ask me, are you a feminist? Of course I'm a feminist, but being a feminist also makes me a humanist. So that's one way I would sort of address what you're asking. With respect to masculinity, masculinity isn't inherently bad or evil at all. Think about the associated characteristics of masculinity, whether it's about strength, inner strength, respect, perseverance, courage, nobility, dignity. Those are beautiful traits that we've sort of neglected or devalued in our capitalist structure and value system, where masculinity has become more of this sort of hyper-masculinity or toxic masculinity, where it's all about power, dominance, control, aggression. So I think when we talk about whole masculinity, it's really about whole humanity. It's really about being a human being. It's about the yin and the yang. And I think and again, I'm not the historian here, but I would argue from what I've read and studied that yes, to a certain extent, we've associated to a certain extent we've sort of devalued femininity and not to a certain extent, to a large extent, and you see it in our economics, and we're getting into some of that in our next film, The Great American Lie, which looks at the social, political, and economic ramifications of the U.S. being a dominator society versus a partnership society, and really looking at the devaluation of care, collaboration, empathy, compassion, and systems like education and caregiving and what have you. So, when I talk about wholeness, I really talk about being whole human beings. and recognizing that unfortunately we've so bifurcated gender and put people into these boxes that we're sort of missing out on the humanity. We're missing out on the fact that we're all born with empathy. And certain studies, and I'm not saying all studies, but there have been studies that we found that indicate that boys are more sensitive at birth than girls, but that we've socialized that out of them. And so I just think at the end of the day, like, we have to come back to being human beings, and human beings are born with empathy and care and compassion, and revaluing those in both men and women.
And for me, I don't even get into the masculine feminine thing. To me, it's not about that. It's about being human. It's just about being human. And I mean, there was a slide up there where they showed the overlap early in the film, and 80% was,
90, yeah.
So it's just about being human. But to me, this is about trying to be somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the mask is. You're not that person. Somebody told you to be that person, so you're being a person somebody told you to be. That's not a masculine thing or a feminine thing. That's not being you. And the male behavior, a lot of that stuff isn't me. It wasn't me. It isn't the guys in the film. So it's not a masculine or feminine thing. It's a human thing. That's the way I look at it, and that's the mileage I get with the kids. You're trying to be something that you're not. I mean, if you go to the women, a lot of my girls are wearing masks.
Yeah.
But that was another movie. This is about this movie. And so yeah, it's not I don't get into that.
Thank you so. Hello? Okay, there we go. Thank you so much for coming in person to speak with us after this. This is really a treat to get to see. I and many others have been working a lot on campus sexual assault this past year, and that's been really focused right now on policy, especially given that we're not even at that kind of ground level and that foundation, which is really important. But by definition, that means that it's more focused on, it's more reactionary, it's more consequence-based, which makes it kind of by definition a more negative frame, and stop doing this,
right.
About the absence of violence as opposed to the presence of respect and those being able to be safe and comfortable. And that, the next step after policies is, of course, the culture piece, which is really exciting to see this film at this time. But that then makes me think of, the tradition. We generally tend to think of tradition in a very positive sense, but what this film so beautifully shows is the negative consequences of this particular part of our tradition. And so I'd love to hear how you think we can help our whole community better connect the understanding of those really negative end products, be it sexual assault or something else, with much, much further up the stream, like boy, don't cry when you're 5 years old, in a way that does not feel targeting of that tradition, but instead is empowering.
Yeah. So if you go to the Representation Project website, the organization that I run, I mean, that's what, the films that we make are more than films, they're about campaigns, and the campaigns are really about partnerships and communications that ultimately lead to growing the larger movement. And in this case, it's about bringing boys and men into the conversation, helping people to go inside, look at themselves, recognize where they have room to grow, or where they're complicit, or where they need to be more conscious, and ultimately give people, whether it's simple actions or tools that they can take to be part of the larger change. And so, this is not, I think cultural change takes a long time. Some argue it takes 20 plus years. We're in this together, and we recognize that. And so for us, really, the next few weeks and months and years are all about who are the people that we can partner with thoughtfully outside of getting this film out into as many communities as possible. And then what are the resources that either we create or other organizations have created that we champion, and such that we can continue to educate people. And it really is about sort of awakening people's consciousness, right? And doing so in a way where people don't repel you, or they're not so reactive, but they can actually hear you. And so I think the film is a start, you know? I mean, we have education curriculum that's available, kindergarten through second grade, third through fifth, middle school, high school, with age-appropriate video modules, classroom exercises, and homework assignments. So we're obviously trying to start at really, really young ages, and this is available for educators and nonprofits. And then we're building out an ambassador program where hopefully both of these esteemed academics and thought leaders can be out there in the field talking with people and mobilizing them to not only their knowledge base and expertise and organizations, but ultimately to just grow the consciousness and spread the message. And then we're building these larger partnerships, and we're doing a big campaign with Maria Shriver and I believe ESPN, although that's kind of slow in coming, but we're doing sort of a city tour. We have a lot of institutions that we want to infiltrate, which includes the video game industry, which includes law enforcement, which includes the NFL. And it takes time and commitment and thoughtful partnerships. And so that's a long-winded way, and I'm not getting specific because hopefully you'll engage with us at the organization level, take the pledge, and then we'll send you weekly actions where you can be engaged. But that's kind of a big picture of what we're about and what we're doing. But really it's the long haul, and it's really about thoughtful partnerships and celebrating thought leaders like these who are the reason I was able to make this film, right? Without their expertise and their voices, the film wouldn't be what it is. Over here.
Hi there. My name is Dr. Karen Lee, and I'm a physician. Professionally, personally, I'm the mom of a 18-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son. And your movies have really spoken to me because of my personal family situation. But professionally, I'm also a wellness coordinator for a local high school district. And what we've done is taken your movie and we're just showing it like crazy at all of our school sites. So this Thursday it's at Woodside High and at Carlmont High. It's already shown at Sequoia High. And we're really just spreading the word, and it's just taking off like wildfire. So my question to you is, we're really reaching the educators, I feel. I feel that it's a buzz and everyone's talking about it. But you mentioned curriculum for younger families.
Yes.
And as a pediatrician, I was wondering, have you reached out to health professionals to, like all those pediatricians out there, we are educating our families from the time the babies are in utero, and I just feel like it has to start there.
Right.
And by the time you get to my district, which is high school, we have so much catch up to do and so much damage control.
Right.
And we've tried meditation programs, which have been amazing, and all sorts of mental health support, but it has to start in utero.
Yes, I 100% agree, 100%. I tell a story whenever I speak about when our daughter was born, Montana. She received all these gifts of pink and so many comments on her looks. And then our next child, Hunter, when he was born, he received all this paraphernalia from the White House, all this, political paraphernalia, and even a letter from the president and vice president and the first lady and second lady, kind of welcoming into the world, like as if our boy could be, and then a T-shirt saying future president, right? So our boy could be our future president, but not our girl. So clearly already, and then we have a third child, another daughter, no White House paraphernalia, nothing from the White House. So a little hypocrisy there, right? But I share this because I totally get what you're saying about the messaging happening in utero, and all I can say is thank you for sharing that. And we're very small, our organization. We have 2 people in distribution, and they're overwhelmed right now. I think there are like 60 requests a week. However, that is on our slate, and any ideas that you have so that we can kind of reach people in a thoughtful way high up, to maybe so that there can be some trickle-down effect in terms of the messaging of the film being available. I would so appreciate that. And I'd love to give you my card. My colleague Hannah's here, so maybe we could coordinate that. But I love that kind of thinking. Any of you that are like big thinkers and strategists and kind of want to give us ideas or make intros to us would be so grateful. Thank you. Yes?
Hi, this question is for Dr. Chu and Dr. Newsom. Not to neglect you, Dr. Marshall, but your guys' work has sort of put you at an advantage over other mothers who don't really have this lens into boys' development and know what it's like to be a boy growing up and facing all these pressures through adolescence. So my question to you guys is, how has this influenced how you've parented both your boys and your girls? And two, what advice do you have for single mothers out there, like Lewis from the film, his single mom, who otherwise don't have that intel to understand and help their boys through these difficult times?
It's a great question. Do you want to answer first? She's the real expert.
I think that in terms of raising my son, it's more just being able to stand by my own conviction as to what's right for him, because there really is this, as much as I like to believe that things are changing and times are changing and people are, more aware of how, gender stereotypes can be oppressive and limiting and all those things, you still hear a lot of comments, the boys don't cry type of comments. And so to know that it's, to be able to look at the research and say, actually, it's okay if they want to, if they have emotions, it's okay if they have these interests that are not falling into a certain, the be a man box. It's good to know that there's that to back us up, because there's certainly, as parents, none of us come into it feeling like, okay, I'm totally I'm the expert of this. It's definitely kind of figuring out as you go along, and being able to know that your instincts, you can trust your instincts, is very helpful. And I think that's one of the things that Jen's film is going to really help with, is that for the boys and the parents who watch it, they'll know that they're not alone, because that was definitely one of the most standout questions that I got when I interviewed the adolescent boys in my studies, was they all wanted to know, am I normal? If I'm struggling with this, am I the only one? And they didn't, and so this film will make them feel like they're joined and that they're not alone, and in that way be very empowering.
On a personal front, my son Hunter's just 3.5. However, I have taken him to dance class. And he loves cooking. He's like a little chemist in the kitchen. He, when he pulls out the sticks and he gets all and stuff like that, every once in a while, sort of just check in with him. And the other day it was so funny. He actually had used the word, "I'm so frustrated," and I thought that was hysterical, because he's 3.5, and I don't really even know if he understands what frustrated means. But he, I engage in dialogue with him and try and communicate a lot with him, so that he just has the language and the tools. And obviously, I am constantly, just like my daughters, and I was raised as a tomboy and played sports, played college soccer here. But it's funny, right? Isn't it that we've accepted as a society that it's okay for our girls to play sports and be athletic and strong, and to a certain extent, right? But with our boys, why is it not okay that? Obviously it is if you're a confident person, but for so many, right? There's still that ridicule and shame that we saw in the interviews. I can't tell you how many of the boys that we interviewed in high school and middle school didn't do choir, didn't do theater, because they were shamed and embarrassed. And by the way, each of them regretted not doing it. So, I will definitely encourage him to be himself and pursue whatever his interests are. And I think that's just important for all parents. And one thing that I'm pretty proud of that I just intuitively came to me was how important it is that young boys learn that caring for, whether it's a doll, a baby, an animal, something other than nature, that's not just a feminine trait, and that our girls are not the only ones that need to learn how to care. So I bought him a doll. And it was a really funky looking doll, by the way. I'm kind of upset with the manufacturers. The boy dolls are really scary looking. They are. The girl dolls are very pretty, and the boy dolls have like crazy hair and these beady eyes, and I don't know what's going on there with the manufacturers. But I got him a doll, and this is true, and he did bite its hand off. But I did it because I wanted him to learn that it's a human character, it's a human trait to care for other beings, and since then I've taken him to brush ponies and animals at a barn, and to learn to take care of animals, and we're very conscientious about like insects and taking care of insects and the whole thing, just because care should not be just something that we only associate with women and girls. And I think that we as a society should have no problem giving boys dolls and things to care for. I mean, I think that there should, truthfully, I mean, I think it's just ridiculous that we only give our girls dolls.
See, I think the real key is going to be when, I mean, here's what boys are going to do. They're going to listen to mom, and then they're going to see, is mom really right? So they're going to have, the only way it's really going to work is if a man validates what mom says.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, we do that at home. We learn one thing at home, then we go out in the world and, you know, we hear something else. So if other men are being taught the same thing, then the guy will say, oh yeah, mom is right, it's okay. The validation is going to have to come from everybody. So, you know, I know that's what they get from me. So, you know, if Judy's teaching her son one thing and he's around me, he's going to see a different representation, or probably her representation. But it's going to have, because it's going against all the stuff he watches on TV. So the male validation is going, you know, it's got to come from somewhere, and it will. And that's why this message is for everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yes.
Hi, congratulations. It's a beautiful and powerful film. So I'm a mom of 8- and 9-year-old boys, and I was wondering, what would you think is the appropriate age to show them this film? Because I was thinking that aside from showing it to educators and to healthcare workers and doctors, wouldn't it be great to take this film and show it to middle schoolers before they get to that age where they cut off from that intimacy and that feeling, so that they too can have the dialogue and they can see it with their peers and share it with girls their own age and start the dialogue earlier and feel less alone.
Yeah, great. So we are finishing this week a PG-14 version. This is definitely more like PG, I don't know, 16, 17. I mean, it's definitely for, I would say, at least juniors, but seniors. I know that 14-year-olds have seen a lot of this stuff before, but just for, so as not to get into trouble, we're creating a PG-14 version, and that will be available very soon. And I think the film's going to be evergreen. And I mean, it's kind of like Misrepresentation is still screening somewhere in the world, as I mentioned earlier, 3 days a week at least. I was just in Texas with Misrepresentation. This is 4 years after the fact. So if Misrepresentation, which to a certain extent is more dated because we show the 2008 campaign when Hillary Clinton ran for the presidency, this film doesn't have that kind of media dating in it. So if that film's still going, I really feel like this film's going to be even more evergreen. So definitely the curriculum and the age-appropriate video modules will be appropriate for your kids. And then after that, obviously when they're, or whenever you feel the PG-14 version's appropriate, you know, you can share it with your kids. I know, well that's the good news, right, about misrepresentation. That's right. And they'll probably be saying some of the same things. That's the bad news. All right.
So we're going to do two things. First of all, Carly, if you could go to the mic and make your announcement. And then what we're going to do, because I think the questions are just really enlightening and helpful for you, for all three of you, but especially Jennifer, as you continue to show the film, we're just going to go through the questions, and if there's one in particular that you want to address, then that's how we'll wrap up. But so we want to give you a chance to at least ask the question, but first there is a brief announcement.
Hi everyone. My name's Carly Flannery, and I don't look like it, but I'm a staff person. I came from yoga class. I work at the Sexual Assault and Relationship Abuse Office here at Stanford, and I want everyone to know that if they want somebody to talk to, we have a 24-hour crisis line. And you can find that number at notalone.stanford.edu. And these folks specifically work with topics that the SARA office would work with. In addition to that, CAPS has a 24-hour crisis hotline, and we do have office hours. And although the SARA office and the Taylor Lane office are not confidential resources, there are folks available. So that website is notalone.stanford.edu.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, great. Thanks for the film. It was wonderful, very eye-opening, very moving. It had really great tips for fatherhood and mentorship. And I was wondering, so as a girl and not a guy, how can we help people in our own peer groups basically learn or grow in true masculinity, to be empathetic and to not be aggressive? And what sort of things you hear from the boys that you work with, that what they would wish for girls in their peer groups that might help them to become more of a man man that, they wish to be.
That's great.
Next question.
I was wondering if you studied any matriarchal societies, such as the American Hopi Indians.
Thank you. Next question, please.
I wondered if you had interviewed or talked to Terrence Real at all, who's done a lot of work on this. And also, I just want to tell you how much I loved your movie. I'm just so jazzed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Over here.
Dr. Chu, you mentioned that boys do actually seek out connections, and I think a lot of the ways that they do is by joining groups like sports teams and fraternities, which then often turn out to actually be vehicles for perpetuating the norms that they're trying to escape from. And so I was wondering if you have come across any institutionalized groups that actually can serve as that escape, and if so, what sets them apart from those other more damaging ones?
Can I just say something? You know what's fascinating to me? I've done this like 4 times. So women are asking all the questions. The men don't ever come to the mic. And I'm like, guys, this is about you, right? And all the women ask, guys, and to me, that's a big part of it. Eventually, the conversation is going to have to come with the guys, and the guys sit there and go like, and they're talking about us, and we're not saying, am I the only man that's talking about this? That just amazes me. And I've been watching this every time, and I'm saying, well, they the only ones interested? Or the guy's afraid? Or I don't know what's going on.
There is someone over there who looks to identify as male, so we'll give him a chance. But I just have to say that in my experience as an educator, I find that that's the opposite of every other situation, right? Where it's usually the guys who are hogging the mic. So this is actually kind of a nice change. Over here.
Thanks for coming. So gender has been racialized historically, socially, legally. So I was wondering what you think the role of race is today in gender and masculinity specifically.
Thank you, and I feel you did a really good job representing the diversity that we have here in the country. However, I believe I'm Native American, and Native American males have the highest suicide rates among several other of the things that you brought up in the film. And I wonder I feel like you went out into a lot of different communities, and I feel Native Americans weren't represented, and I wonder why.
Thank you. Next question, please.
I'm an educator, and so the fact that these resources are available in curriculum is just fabulous and amazing, and I'm going to be helping distribute them like nobody's business, and I'll talk to you more about that. But I'm just curious too, for is there curriculum for adults? We saw the powerful work happening in jails and prisons and in those other environments, but it would be great to know or to have those kinds of resources as well.
Yeah. So these would be the last 2 questions that will be raised. Go ahead.
Simple question is, who benefits from this system, which obviously is very harmful for all of us?
I'm going to ask a question on my brother's behalf, because I think he would want to know this. He confessed to me that the one thing in movies that always makes him cry, like tears crying, is just bros loving each other. Like every bromance is in tears. He loves it. And he says he just can't get his friends to admit they feel the same way, although he knows they do. Yeah. So how would he kind of help bring this conversation up with his friends? Because since I know him well enough, I know he inherently feels this, it's true, and wants to talk to his friends, but they're kind of like, no, dude, I don't cry. So how would they do it?
Thank you for all your questions. We won't get a chance to answer all of them, but if you would like to answer a few.
Do you guys want to start?
I can't remember them all.
I know, right? Are there any that spoke to you in particular that you want to address?
Real quick, one woman asked about Terrence Real,
yes.
and it piggybacks on an earlier question, and that's to say that when Terry Real points out that when you take the whole of human qualities and you split it in half, and you say this side's masculine and this side's feminine, and only men can be masculine and only women can be feminine, everyone loses. And that's kind of the system that patriarchy is operating under right now. And so that's, and then on another, just real quick, the other woman had asked about Be a Man and how this came out of a tradition. But Michael Kimmel from the film points out also that just as well as boys and girls know what it means to be a man, they also know what it means to be a good man. And that also comes out of tradition. And it emphasizes things like integrity and loyalty and responsibility and care and generosity. And so they can, that's a way to kind of transition them so that they're not giving up masculinity in some way, but simply shifting the tracks to another masculinity that's accessible to them and that they are aware of.
That's great.
So generally when I do this, I will list, sometimes I just do lists with the kids. What it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be good. And you'd be surprised. At the end, the same things are on the board on both sides. And so, to me, it's about being a good person. And when you do it like that, that other stuff goes out of there. Because in the end, all the kids, in fact, I think most people want to be good people. And when you get that list, the list is exactly the same. The other stuff is superfluous. And I think that's what these guys are saying. I really want to be a good person. And this stuff got in the way. And again, like I said, this film is putting it out there, and it just depends on what we want to do with it. Because we're going to put the mask on as soon as we leave this room.
Jennifer will give you the last word.
Just really quickly to address the question about putting a lens on the Native American population in particular, the Native American men. We are actually, there's another film that I'm doing that's sort of on the epigenetics of trauma, and one of the main vignettes will be on a Native American family, and so I tried to make the films as sort of representative as possible, but you only can do so much, and eventually you have to stop shooting. And that's another reason Terrence Real wasn't in the film for various reasons. But what I can say is that with respect to questions about adults having the tools and curriculum and resources to continue the conversation, if you go to the representationproject.org website and you take the pledge, we will give you these weekly actions. Not only that, but you can go, and in June we have a whole new look to the website where there will be tools and resources, there will be conversation starters, there will be a burgeoning ambassadorship program, there will be all these things that will enable you to have dinner table conversations and conversations at the water cooler at work, and in addition to the curriculum that's available right now across the country. Also in April, we're launching our on-demand theatrical model. It's really nice seeing it in a big theater on a big screen and being able to have a conversation like this afterwards. And so if you want to continue to engage more men in the conversation, because that's the only way we're going to see any change, is if more men see this film and are comfortable recognizing that they've and as a result of seeing the film, recognize that they've been programmed or misled or fed a limiting narrative about what it is to be whole and what it is to be a man. So to further that, it's really about getting the film in front of as many men as possible. And so hopefully you all can continue with us. I mean, we reach about 2.5 to 5 million people a week via social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. 2 campaigns of ours that were really successful, and we plan to do the same with the mask you live in, but 2 campaigns, recent ones, are Not Buying a campaign, basically transformed the representations of women in commercials during the Super Bowl. GoDaddy in particular, the CEO was replaced. They brought in a whole new PR and marketing team and developed a new strategy. And the CEO tweeted me and basically said they read all 7,500 of our Not Buying It tweets that were aimed at their really sexist advertising during the Super Bowl a few years ago. And so we've been credited for that transformation. I'm sure if you watched the Super Bowl this past year, you saw that the commercials were a lot more what am I trying to say? They respected women more than in the past. And then our Ask Her More campaign, just recently, basically, we were credited by ABC and ET&E for transforming the conversation on the red carpet. And that was literally, it's all about asking the acclaimed actress or director, more than what she's wearing, but what she's passionate about, what her next project is, what she's doing to make the world a better place, what makes her get out of bed in the morning, like all the things that recognize her as a whole human being. And so because of those successes, even if they're industry specific, I know that we are able to spark this larger conversation, and I know that we're going to be able to see some change. But it's really about you all. If you enjoyed the film and you feel inspired in some way, or you feel more awake and conscious of what's going on, which is really the aim of this film and the larger work that we do at the Representation Project, join us and be a part of the larger movement. Because, you know, we're in this for the long haul. These folks have been doing this for a long time and are thought leaders in their own right, and we're here. We're here, and we're here to make the world a better place, and we're here to help kids, and we're here to help everyone that needs the help to be a full human being. So thank you for having us.
Thank you all again for coming.